Welcome back to the table and a little board game news. This is not exactly brand new news, but we have some brand new
exciting
details.
news, though.
It is exciting news. We're here to talk about Star Wars Unlimited.
AKA my next big obsession.
I mean, this, I'm probably going to stay out of the obsession realm, but they announced
You think
this.
you'll play it?
I'll try it for sure. I mean, I tried the Star Wars deck building game. More on that in a second.
Yeah, right. Very different. We'll talk about that.
But yeah, they announced Star Wars Unlimited a couple weeks ago, depending on when you're watching this. And then most recently, they shared a few more details, more images that we'll have here of some of the cards, things like that we could glean a little bit more information. Not a full, complete picture, but we've got quite a bit more information about the game now.
We've combed a lot of different sources. We've looked at a lot of different information, videos, listened to what people have had to say, read articles. Really, because I'm excited about the game.
We're making stuff up, too.
Some of it we're gonna speculate, though.
Yeah.
I mean, speculation is basically a fancy way of saying we're making it up. But we are gonna speculate a little bit, and not just speculate, but also talk about what we want, or what we hope maybe.
And what we're worried about.
And what we're worried about, because I do have concerns. I'll say that right now.
I have concerns, as Jeremy Howard might say.
I do have concerns. So, well, first of all, let's just talk about what it is. For those of you who don't know what a TCG is, think like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon. So this is different from FFG's old model where they would do LCGs, which were living card games like Marvel Champions, like Netrunner, things like that, where you would buy a box set or you would buy a pack, and literally every card would come in that. You just need to buy the one box and you're good. You have everything.
But let's talk about one big difference right there is it feels in some respects like they're kind of riding both sides of the fence, because while it is a TCG, there's no rarity with the
that
cards
is something,
or something like that?
That is something that it's bold.
Have they fully explained that?
They haven't fully explained that, but what he said is that they want this to be an accessible game. So kind of like, the LCG, you get all the cards. The deck building game, which is not an LCG, it's a standalone game, you get all the cards you need. And if there's expansions, there's expansions. So normally in a CCG, you have to keep buying packs, and some of the cards are very rare. Like you can imagine, in Star Wars Destiny, which was another game they did, which was Star Wars based, there were specific cards that you'd buy a box and you'd hope to get that one card.
Yeah.
They're saying, or at least implying, that they're doing away with that, and that there's no real rarity, and that everyone has a chance to get every card. And so it should be very easy for someone to get the cards they need, because prices are not going to be super high on the secondary market, because you can literally just get access to all the cards. That being said,
well, maybe. I mean, you have to buy and cross your fingers to some degree, right?
You will. I mean, normally a lot of times when people don't want to just buy a bunch of packs, like if there's that one specific Magic card you want for your deck, you just go buy it. And you might spend $10 to $15 to buy that one card, but it's better than buying, 100 packs and hoping you get it. So there's always a market. There's places online that will sell, aftermarket or second market cards, but they're saying that they're trying to keep the cost of those cards down. The expensive cards are going to be the alternate art, the foil, the shiny,
we'll see how that goes.
Those are the chase cards.
But there are some rarity to that effectively then.
That is what they implied. The speaking directly to us in their little developer blog or whatever, they said that the collectors are going to be paying those cards that you normally would buy that were very expensive will be the collector's cards. And it's all cosmetic, they said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping...
Sounds like a lofty promise.
I mean, I want to see how that works in practice, because as someone who's bought a lot of these things but then never played them, like Pokemon cards or Magic cards, I love the idea. I love the joy of opening a deck and seeing what you get. And if there's nothing exciting about what you get, because all the cards are...
But I think so.
Whatever. I don't understand that.
Well, I think the idea is that you're going to there will be probably a rare card in every pack that's like a super cool version of one of the other cards.
Okay.
Like you'll open up your pack.
But mechanically, not necessarily.
But not mechanically special. I think that's what they're trying to do, is to make it so.
Well, that's cool. Fine.
People can play this game now. This is where my first concern comes in, because that chase is what fuels a lot of these games. Like you'll buy whole box sets, hoping to get that one card. And in a box that's like 100 packs, you might get one of them or two of them if you're lucky, of those really, really rare cards in a Magic set. And that's what people chase. I know that they're putting all their hope on like the collectors and people that want all foil versions of other cards, that they'll still go out and keep buying packs to get those foil cards. But for me, once I have, if I buy a couple packs or enough packs to have a complete set, and I pick and choose and I buy some cards to fill it out, I won't need to keep buying packs at that point. And I'm wondering if people still will buy packs just to get that shiny version or that rare version of the card.
Well, and we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit, but on that point, they have fairly aggressive plans for launching new sets.
They do.
So it sounds like they announced 3 sets, including the first one, and these are all going to begin releasing anyway in 2024.
2024, they said. They haven't given us an exact time. I wouldn't be surprised if it was later in the year. I think if it was early 2024, if it was only like 6 to 8 months from now, they'd probably know more specifically, like, oh yeah, it's Q1. The fact that they haven't said it's Q1 makes me think that they know they're not going to be ready at the beginning of the year, but they don't know. Like, it'll be sometime.
But either way, from wherever it begins, they're going to have about 12 months.
Well, they've got 12 months planned already.
Planned with the 3 sets. And if they shared the 3 sets. The first one is called Spark of the Rebellion.
Right, which is where we see Luke, Vader, the X-Wings, Rebels versus the Imperials.
Pretty standard stuff. I think you're going to find all the classic Star Wars stuff. Then is Shadows of the Galaxy.
That feels...
And my guess, if this is all within 12 months, these are going to be spaced apart by 4 to 5 months each.
Yeah, there's probably going to be 3 a year, it sounds like.
And all of these probably won't be in calendar year 2024 because it'll probably straddle.
It'll be the 2024 to 2025 year,
right. So Shadows, who knows what that is? I mean, I would
Bounty
think...
Hunters, Jabba...
I'm guessing it's going to be sort of the scum and villainy side of Star Wars universe, Bounty Hunters for sure.
Potential. I mean, it could also be, something like the darker side of the Empire, like, who knows what that's.
Yeah,
what
was
means
the?
Exactly.
There was an old video game called
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire.
There's a book too.
It has shadows in it. Speaking of video game, by the way, but the last one is Twilight of the Republic.
That feels like Fall of the Republic, Clone Wars era style.
Twilight. Yeah, I guess Twilight would mean just
maybe
before the end. Just
right
before
before
the end.
Order 66, maybe.
Yeah. But mentioning video games, I want to get back to that. One of the cool things that I think is really exciting about this, we'll see how deep it goes. Supposedly, there's no limitation on them for what they pull from within all of the different mediums of Star Wars. Movies, television, comic books, video games. They've mentioned all of those things. And, those things, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're talking about a lot of animation.
Yeah, well, there's a caveat here.
A lot of different styles of animation. You're going to bring up canon?
I am, because we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, it might not include non-canon stuff.
It might only be like post-Disney buyout, what's considered actual canon. But even then, there's still a ton of stuff to draw from. But if they could draw from Legends and like the old Republic stuff,
I want to see if they're calling themselves Star Wars Unlimited, and they're limited.
I mean, I imagine they're going to pull canon. I mean, we'll see. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so they're pulling from all those things, but let's talk about the game.
Wait, one thing. Well, I want to talk about that, what you just said, because I think this is really cool. Because they are pulling from video games and from comics and from movies, they're not just pulling images. I like that, because some of their previous games have used stills, or they'll just take the comic book panel. They're actually redoing all of this with one cohesive art style. So characters from the books that were never drawn, characters from the comics and from the video games are all going to have the same artwork.
I 100% endorse this. Whether you like this style or not, and you've seen that in some of the cards, I think it's a good idea that they bring that cohesiveness to it. And I personally really like the style because it kind of has a slightly cartoony...
A little bit.
Just not too cartoony, but it's got a slight... sort of like cell-shaded, animated look to them, for sure.
If this was an animated show, I'd watch it.
I really dig the way it looks, and I think that is a good idea. But the game itself, they've shown a few cards. They've talked about the game. Ryan probably has more to say about this because he's played more of these types of games. But some of the things they talked about were you're going to be playing against someone else. You're going to have a leader and a base. I don't think they've shown any of the bases, right?
I have not seen I don't think they've released that. I think they're sitting on that because that's going to be a huge part of the game.
Yeah, but they did show leader cards, at least Luke and
Vader.
Darth Vader. Yep. And the cool thing about this, so you're going to have those in play, and the leader cards, they spent a little bit more talking about. The leader card's going to start sort of like in landscape form in front of you, and then there's certain things that you can do during the game that will sort of unlock that character, at least in Luke's case. I don't know if
Vader
it's all
too.
of them.
Yeah,
Vader.
It looks like, we've only seen 2, but both of them have it, so I would imagine.
And they bring them into play, basically, as a unit. But until that point, they're kind of, they behave a little bit differently, and that is the card that they'd suggested in their video. that you're going to build around.
It sounds like you're going to have to. And I'm getting Commander vibes from this a little bit.
Yeah, I saw some people in the comments on their video talking about Commander.
Right, as far as the hero that you choose is going to dictate the cards that are allowed to go in your deck. So when you pick your hero, I'm assuming that the base as well, it's going to be, you're going to have to use bases and heroes that can coexist, but then the cards in your deck. Like, for example, Luke being a leader, and then there's some other, Luke being a leader of the rebellion, and then there's some other icons on the cards that suggest like force sensitivity. So those might key into like what cards can be included in that specific deck.
More limitations for a game called Unlimited.
Well, you've got to. In order to make deck construction fun, you can't just throw everything in there. They did say that it's going to be looser than what Destiny was. Destiny was very strict on what cards you could have in your deck, allowing for very, very tight deck building with very slight variations. Like you'd have a deck that worked and everyone would be playing almost exactly the same deck because there wasn't a lot of wiggle room. It sounds like in Unlimited, they're saying that there's more flexibility, but not only are you limited, sorry, David, by the card, by your leader, but also your leader has a strategy. They have an action and they have a goal. And you want to kind of build your deck towards that goal because ultimately you do want to get that leader out onto the battlefield because they are very powerful. And the whole goal here is to destroy your enemy's base. So everything you can do to kind of push towards that is going to be a big help for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of cards. I think the ones that I remember them mentioning, you've got those leaders, the bases, there's units, there's events.
Yep.
Anything else?
I think that's all they've said so far.
I think that's all they mentioned.
And we've seen hint at, but not shown yet, resource cards, which are going to be like the mana in Magic or the energy in Pokemon. You're going to have resource cards that produce resources that you'll spend to play cards
did they say
out.
that specifically? There would be cards, or maybe you burn cards for doing that?
They didn't, but there are cards that they've shown that say unexhaust resources or play a resource card.
I see.
So we know that resource cards exist. We just haven't seen exactly what they're going to look like or how exactly they're going to produce those resources. But
another interesting thing about how the game is played, and I've not played a lot of these games, but you're battling on two fronts effectively. Yeah. There's a space front and then sort of the ground front. And it sounded interesting to me, that layer of extra strategy where you could build a deck. You could go heavy on one, you could go heavy on the other, you could kind of like balance it out. But if you're going up against someone and they've gone really heavy on one, you might have an opportunity over here, but you're probably going to get slammed over here. So, and I'm sure there's probably some interesting cards that kind of obviously play off of that.
That's my second concern. I hope so. I hope there's like the ion cannons that can shoot up into the into space, or you can bombard, with your Star Destroyers and blow up the ground troops. My fear there is in how the deck's balanced is that you might walk into a game where I'm like, okay, I've got a very balanced deck. I'm very balanced ground and space versus somebody that went heavy in one, meaning that's almost an automatic win because you just can't compete with them in that arena.
I mean, I'm sure they've been developing this for 4 years.
That's what they said, which gives me some hope. I mean, we haven't seen how this plays out, but when I hear
new hope,
it's giving me a new hope.
I'm sorry.
It gives me a new hope that when the Empire Strikes Back, they can do it from space.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
boy.
I'd like to see a lot of cards that cross that barrier, or allow you to shoot back and forth or to interfere with each other.
Play with the idea of those two portions.
That kind of gets me into the gameplay structure, which this is very interesting. They're adopting a gameplay structure more akin to what Star Wars Destiny had.
Yeah, where it's just action, back and forth.
It's just do an action. On your turn, you do one action, your opponent does one action. And that was very fun in Destiny because there was, you'd play a card, and that gave you a dice. You'd roll the dice, and you'd, whatever. I have no idea what the components for this one are going to be, but there's not going to be dice.
No, I don't think that. One thing they've said is it's not gimmicky.
They have said that.
And I'm pretty sure this is going to be cards, period.
Well, we'll talk.
No?
There's going to be a little more.
Okay.
I don't know
what you think?
They teased it.
Okay.
They may have not even teased it on purpose, but they did drop a little bit. So, but effectively, a lot of it's cards. I'm guessing there are going to be things that are tracked with tokens. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
There's going to be shield tokens. We know there's probably resource tokens.
They got to have that market for aftermarket tokens.
Well, that's what they said. They've already GameGenic is going to be providing, and they didn't just say tokens. They said a whole suite of products, which of course probably means sleeves and playmats and deck boxes.
Yeah.
But it also could mean actual components, upgraded versions of the components that you'd see in the game, which I'm expecting GameGenic will do. Destiny had a huge aftermarket of people buying nicer components, and even the deck building game has you could buy upgraded versions of the credits and things like that to use in your game. And so I wouldn't imagine that GameGenic is going to support that. But yeah, that turn-to-turn action of like, I have everything available. Okay, I could use this card now, exhaust it to do its action, to do damage, but right now I can only damage the base, and maybe you're going to play a card that's a troop, so maybe I don't want to activate that just in case, and there's a whole back and forth.
Makes it far more tactical because I assume you're going to do something thinking you're going to put this plan in place, but then you have to react to what happens immediately after you do that thing because they might do something that foils their plan. So timing, they've even said in their videos.
They've stressed tactical a lot.
Tactical, timing-based gameplay is a big part of it. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and this is less about the game itself and more about its impact on other things that FFG has going on, namely the Star Wars deck building game, which we've just played. We played recently on the channel a few times.
I love it.
And we really enjoyed it. And one of the things we talked about a lot was its future.
Sure.
And I have to say, my hunch is that's going to be sort of the stepchild of the bunch in terms of like the attention it gets, because it sounds like FFG is putting a ton of resources behind Unlimited.
Maybe. I mean, they are putting a lot of resources behind Unlimited, but they have been for years. They said it's been like years of development work, and they have multiple teams working on each set. And then the Star Wars deck building game is Caleb and his team, right? So
that is
they
true.
have a dedicated team. I don't know that there's a lot of oversight. They've said specifically that they didn't plan on abandoning any of their other products. They were talking more about LCGs at the time, like Marvel Champions and the Lord of the Rings LCG that's going on. But and Elder Sign is their other. But they kind of hinted that this would be continuing. And what I'd actually like to see, since we have the base that is Rebellion, the deck building game is Rebellion. Then we have the Shadows of the Galaxy coming out. I think it'd be kind of cool if they kind of
mirrored each other.
I mean, a little. I think that would be kind of cool.
I mean, as a company, it's going to be really tricky. You've got two big Star Wars programs. This is definitely going to be the bigger one, no question.
But it won't be the. It'll be the. Yeah, I mean, it'll be the bigger one. But, okay, this is going to sound weird.
If Lucasfilm comes to them and says, "Okay, sorry, but you got to pick one."
Sure.
Bye-bye, deck building game.
But I don't think that's going to happen. And I think the deck building game will still have an audience because I think that there is already a large percentage of board gamers that don't play CCGs, and I think that will continue.
No, I'll more likely play the deck building game.
And I think that they will still. I think that they will still continue to support the deck building game. They'll both sell. If you're a Star Wars fan that's playing the TCG and this deck building game exists, I mean, I will play both.
I'm just saying it's a tricky thing as a corporation to balance two very, and I know they're very different products on one hand, but in a very general sense, you've got two Star Wars card games that are going to be selling at the same time.
That is true.
That is a tricky thing to balance.
I mean, it is. And people are still saying they want like a Star Wars-esque LCG a la Elder Sign, which would be pretty cool.
I mean, and if people buy it, they'll probably keep printing these things.
But they did say that this was, I mean, they've got a lot of Star Wars games coming out. They've got that Star Wars Shatterpoint coming out, which is a miniatures game, Star Wars card games. They're still
I hope their
supporting
relationship with Disney and Lucas is good, because that's a lot of eggs in one basket.
I mean, it is. I don't think they're worried about losing the Star Wars license anytime soon. The way they've done. And the fact that they're planning on multiple years of content, and they are planning on supporting this game. They've already talked about they're going to support it through organized play. They're going to support it through tournaments in the future and things like that. And they have a whole organized play plan. I know that you really enjoy this.
Well, I don't know that I enjoy it. They call their organized play C3OP instead of C3PO. Very cute, very clever. It stands for collect.
Connect.
Connect, collect,
compete.
So, I mean, long story short, this is a very marketing way of saying, hey, we're making a game that's everything to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, in some instances, I think that what they're doing is novel, but also it's not new. I mean, this has been done before. Magic does this. Well, what they're doing is more breaking it down into linear. They're saying this event is more for the the casual gamers that just want to get out of the house and play games with people.
Well, they need to communicate this. They don't want to announce it like they have. They obviously have to put a label on it and say, hey, we are going to be a game that can be for everyone. We don't want to just put it out there and think, oh, this is just a competitive TCG. It's not.
But then there's the collector side, which they want people to collect the game, and they're going to draw those collectors out into organized play by giving you special editions of cards, stuff that you won't be able to find in packs, organized play kits, reasons to play in those tournaments, and then of course the competitive side sounds pretty cool. They've already got a robust tournament system already in play ready to go when the game launches, where you're going to be able to enter into tournaments at your local game store or other game stores that will then move you on to regional tournaments and then what they call like the Galactic Championship. And you're going to be earning tournament points as you play. So that sounds like a very cool way to lure in the competitive player by letting them do these events. And if you're, just a very casual gamer and you're going to some of these casual game nights, but then you want to try a tournament, they're trying to make it very easy to bring new players in to the CCG market.
Good luck to them on that.
I mean, we'll see. This is a big year. We've got this coming out in 2024. Lorcana comes out later in 2023. And then, Magic is still the behemoth.
Sure.
The behemoth.
Magic's not going anywhere.
Magic is definitely not going anywhere.
But hopefully Unlimited goes somewhere. We want, we're Star Wars fans. We are gamers, Ryan in particular. I think if this game is great and they support it a long time, Ryan's going to be spending a lot of money.
I played that Decipher Star Wars CCG all the way through
back
its
in the day.
Back in the 90s. That was a fun game.
Well, if you have any questions about Star Wars Unlimited, put them down in the comments below. We won't answer one of them because we've shared all the details that we know right now.
But we'll engage with them.
We will engage and talk with you about it.
Sure.
We'll speculate even more.
Yeah.
So get down there and let us know what you think. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.